So let's move on, because we have our New Zealand ZZ Top and their perfect presentation, but before Mark, we will have a short 3-minute video to watch.
Concrete jungle there, urban jungle there. Amazing how the whole environment changes when you bring biodiversity in. And now I've got it on a big scale, not just my own property, but it's out in the street and the parks. This is all beautiful, rich compost. Look at that. Well, it all starts from the ground up. So we've got to bring the biome back into our environment, which is where the genetic information helps the organisms connect with the ground and the trees you put together. Then over here, you see all the different layers. All these layers hold on to water, and then the excess, they just let it come out slowly and feed the next layer. And then eventually it goes down to the ground, which is the composting system, which holds on to it again. So I've got basically a wall garden here as well. And then I've got a roof garden. Then I've got biodiversity garden with sponge gardening in the garden. So come up to Western Park. So this is where it starts. It's green waste. So this normally goes into landfill. Underneath this is green waste with wood chip on top of it. And it's acting as a sponge garden which absorbs and holds on to water in the wet and dry periods. We've had a couple floods in Western Park already, but my sponge gardening hasn't moved. Where the other side of the park, the water and the mud and the sewage was just horrendous. But on my side, where I put all this sponge gardening, it's held its ground, it's filtering the water, it's holding on to water, it's keeping the trees all happy with all the nutrients. The next park we're going to will show you what this will look like in a 5-year period.
And I'll just repeat, Mark from Kaathoven from New Zealand started to recreate his garden 30 years ago by the green waste, what you have seen. It's a low-tech technology, it's not a high-tech, but a low-tech. But it's of course harder to do, and we are too lazy to that, so therefore we admire these people who are not that lazy, so the floor is yours.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. I'd just like to make some apologies on behalf of our Deputy Mayor, Desley Simpson. She was going to be coming here to introduce me like she did at the World Green Infrastructure Conference 4 weeks ago in Auckland, but she can't because the Mayor is actually in China. So what I'm doing here with urban jungles is a good form of green infrastructure. I guess you saw the muted version in the video, so I kind of have to explain myself there a little bit. What I've done is I'm recycling green waste in my whole process. So green waste that normally goes into landfill, I use it to make these environments. So this is the world that I live in. Like I said to people at the Urban Jungle, at the World Green Infrastructure Conference, you're here trying to work out a future and a dream. I'm going to show you that I'm living that dream. I have for the last 30 years. And I found this all out as a child. My father was a landscape gardener, and I come from a family of 7 children. And when we were old enough, we went to work with our dad on our holidays, on weekends, and we didn't like it at all because we wanted to play with our mates and do other things like that, but we had to go to work with Dad. And all the green waste that Dad took off people's properties, we brought it home to our property and put it in our garden. And as a little kid, I actually thought that was a normal process of how we look after our environment. But little did I realise when I became an adult and started working in the industry myself for the last 15 years, it was so far from the truth that it really kind of shocked me. But I still live with the beliefs and the way I was taught by my dad. All the green waste that I've produced as a landscape gardener none of it went to the tip. I think I took about 4 bags of rubbish to the tip in the last 15 years. The rest of it goes to my environment, my backyard, my front yard, my street gardens, and now my parks. So this particular park, I've got 3 contracting companies that don't take green waste to the tip anymore. So I'm preventing a small group of landscape gardeners, stopping them putting green waste into landfill, which produces methane gas and other issues that we have with landfill. So impact on climate change resilience. So urban vulnerability, human impact and social inequity challenges. These are the issues we have. I'll just go back to... So we have flooding issues, we have fast climate adaptations, urban planning. We've got to all work together with our governments, with our councils. And this is another reason why Deputy Mayor Desley Simpson's getting involved with what I'm doing. She wants to see this plan go all through Auckland and New Zealand, and her big vision is the world. So walking around in your part of the world here, I don't really see much change in the form of recycling green waste. I see a lot of your parks, a lot of the green waste is taken away. You've got autumn coming on. I presume all those leaves are going to be taken away and put into some sort of bagging system and thrown away, when in actual fact, your best product for your parks is what's coming off the trees, and it should be left there to decompose, to neutralise the soil and put your microorganisms back into the ground for the following year's growth. So this is the jungle I live in on the left, and this is a jungle that I live very close to, 15 minutes walk from my house. I live next to this concrete jungle, Auckland City. This city, to survive, produces 88,000 tonnes of green waste a year, and that's not including the private sector. And 37,000 tonnes of that is greenhouse emissions. So times that by 4 times, that's what we're producing at the moment. We mow 55 million square metres of lawn every fortnight in this city. 14 million square metres of that costs Auckland City Council 15 cents per square metre every fortnight. So, and there's a lot of other figures I can give you about running a concrete jungle. Then we go to the left here and look at the jungle that I live in here with my partner. I have no green waste. I have good carbon collectives. My microbiomes are just having gun blazers surviving in here. They're just loving every moment of this. I've got a bird life in here which is beyond anyone's dream. And this is my roof. So I've got a roof garden. I've got a wall garden, and I've put this all together in the last 30 years. Now, I grew up in Australia. I lived in the 60s, 70s and 80s in Australia. I lived with fires, droughts, floods. Australia's got the most fragile ecosystem in the world, and yet they're still building concrete jungles there. So when I came to New Zealand in 1991, it was a dream for me because I could put a garden together knowing that I wasn't going to be hit by severe weather events. But 33 years later, New Zealand and Auckland is getting hit by weather events that I used to deal with as a kid. So the world is changing environmentally, and we all need to work together. As an individual, this is what I've done in my environment, and I do say to people when I have tours that come to my area, I say, if one person can do this in their community, what's the other 8 billion of us doing on this planet? So this is where it all started. This photo here on the left here is the area in 1965. Not many trees. My house is here. This house here is right there. Freeman's Bay Park is here. Western Park is there. Take a note of that because they're the parks that I'm transforming. And then we have the street gardens here, which are all planted that I've done. So this is the house that I moved in 1994. This is me putting the garden together. So the gate here is what it looks like today. And that's the view we get from our house every morning. And we've got bird life in there, insects and biodiversity on an incredible level. Here we have Freeman's Bay Park on the corner, at the right-hand little corner down here. The council found out this was a council park 5 years ago. They engaged with me to see if I can put some sort of garden in there for them. It's also a floodplain. So the trees that were here, the pin oaks, had taken ownership of this land way before I got here. So I got busy with putting green waste down here, put my green waste with wood chip, and my contractors brought more green waste in. We let it sit for about 3 or 4 or 5 months, and then we could put our juvenile plants into the whole planting system here. And this group of people, we managed to put 1,500 plants in the ground within 4 hours. That's how easy it is to plant into this sponging system that I put together. And then if you look over to the right over here, this is what it looks like today. The black and white photo that was on the corner here, that's it over there in colour, in the right-hand corner down the bottom there. The photo there of the water, that's when we had a downpour of rain 3 weeks ago, 15 minutes of rain. We had about 25 mils of rain within 15 minutes. The park held on to the water, and consequently the sponge gardening absorbed it all. So the sponging system I put together works really well in drought periods and in wet periods. Okay, so my whole system of planting was really tested in the last 3 years of weather events we had in Auckland, 2021 and 22. We had droughts and we weren't allowed to water our gardens. So I went one step further and disconnected all my downpipes of my house and my roof, and I put receptor water tanks around my property to hold on to water so I can water my garden in the drought periods. I learned that through the Australian experience. It also saved our grey water to water our garden as well. We had 2 years of drought, came through that, not a problem. Then 2023, we had rain beyond anyone's comprehension. January 27th, 2023, we had 5 hours of rain. Every hour, we almost had 100 mils of rain per hour. And no one knew what to do. Places were being flooded left, right and centre. I actually wasn't in New Zealand when it happened. I was actually in Australia visiting family. But I came home and my garden, my house, there was no damage. All my neighbours got flooded. My garden absorbed all the water, layers in the trees absorbed all the water, held on to it as a sponge would. Consequently, I didn't lose my flood insurance, or my neighbours around me have lost their flood insurance because of the damage of their properties. It's so significant. Some people are still dealing with rectifying the problem to this day. And this is what the future is for New Zealand and all of us in the world, actually. But my whole concept was tested through these three years of weather events. Kind of came through with flying colours, actually. So I'm not kind of panicking too much about global warming because I've already been tested 3 years of weather events and I've come through unscathed, basically. Okay. Empowering adaptations to climate change, increasing protection and cost efficiencies, reducing GHG emissions and landfill waste, improves health and well-being. So here is how we're all living in the world, in these concrete jungles. And this is how I'm living it at the other end over here. And it's working. I mean, I spent 3 days before coming here in Vienna. I was really quite shocked, actually. There's a lot of concrete, a lot of heat. And it's really interesting coming to this part of the world, not as a tourist, but someone looking at these cities from an environmental perspective. We've got to work pretty fast if we're going to make some changes. I can tell you this right now. And if governments aren't going to come on board with this, then we all need to work as individuals and work in our backyards and our front yards and lead by our own example. And that's what I've done here. And it really works. But I've gone one step further. I've got involved with my residents association, my local board, and consequently my word has been heard. And they've all come on board with my ideas. And now the council recognises it. And now I'm here, 30-hour flight to get here, telling you people that we all are in the same room together. Basically, we all living on this planet together. So whatever you are doing in the northern hemisphere affects us in the southern, and vice versa. We all live in the same room, basically, and we need to really look after our environment because it's going to be a really hard future if we don't. This is Western Park. So all this you see here is all green waste. There's about 3,000 tonnes of green waste in this park that I've put in here so far that would normally go into landfill. I started putting this together in January, February this year. We had a storm that came through last week or 2 weeks ago. The water coming off the footpath went straight into the sponging system and held on to it. And then on the other side of the park, which I haven't quite got to yet, which I'll be doing next year, the water coming off there on the right-hand side continually floods the park. And this park, this 30 acres of park, has a huge collective system of water. And the bottom end of this park, across the road from it, there's 205 apartments. It flooded a third of their complex last year. And the council, they've lost their flood insurance because of it. The council have engaged me to put sponge gardening here to slow the process of water, slow it down, so that we can possibly help them get their insurance back. So if you look in the photo here, the fourth one here, you'll see the water's coming out gradually and it's all nice and clear. So the sponging system holds on to water and lets it out really slowly a week or so on. Whereas if we don't have that and just have grass embankments, it comes crashing down to its lowest point and causes a lot of damage. As we all know, was it 3 weeks ago you had 5 days of rain here and it was 4 metres of... We were watching in horror in New Zealand on the news what you people were going through with that. I'm helping them solve the problem here. I'm not saying I've got the answers to everything, but it's a start. So again, if you people look at what you do with your green waste, instead of putting it into landfill, and start from the ground up, the ground is what you need to start with first. You need to put the nutrients, everything back into the ground. You need to bring the biomes, microbiomes into the ground with all the microorganisms, and then you start planting your trees into this system, and the whole lot works collectively, beautifully together. And it's also an amazing carbon storage area. So this is Auckland's goals for the future. I'm helping them get their goals and more. So this is the world I live in. Visually, this is me on the street here. This is the street gardens. It's all bush. It used to be all grass. This is the local park. I walk to this park every day to pick up rubbish, see how the plants are growing. The nice thing about what I'm doing in my area, I basically have 80 acres of a garden that I have control of, but only pay taxes on 427 square metres of it. The rest the council owns. So another thing is we're only caretakers of what we've got. We don't own anything. we're only here for a short period of time. It's the next generation that we've always got to think about what we're doing on our land and what we're doing in our cities, because they're the ones that are going to have to fix up the problems that we're creating for them. This is the bird life we have in our area. The last photo at the end there, you could call that a Monet painting. That's just our garden. And we look at that every day. It's kind of amazing. And then we have our roof garden. We've got a roof. Half the roof is all garden, so I have all my hot loving plants up there, my bromelias, my orchids, my trillensias, my carnivorous plants. So I make use of every part of my property, roof, everything. And I'd just like to make special thanks to the people who help us get here. These are the people that sponsored me to come here from New Zealand to share what I'm putting together for them in New Zealand. Not fair share. Yeah, and that's me. Okay.
So that's you. Thank you so much,
All
Mark.
right.
A aký skromný človek, ako nádherne rozpráva.
What a modest person! What a beautiful speech, and what a nice inspiration, especially for us who live in the block of flats. It's like when I was a kid, we used to do this gardening in front of our apartments. I mean, so thank you very much at this moment. The current speakers who have already given their speeches have said what they needed. And when our colleague showed us what his garden looks like and what the downtown of Auckland looks like, and also with the previous speaker, those like glass buildings, we had this expression there, architectural pornography. We smiled, all of us, and let's say Burj Khalifa in Dubai, that's a piece of pornography, I would say. Somebody had to prove there that my penis is the biggest one. So
mali by sme hneď konsolidáciu na Slovensku. To je neuveriteľné. Jedna budova v púšti a Slovensko sa mohlo mať dobre, keby tá budova nestála.
So I'm not going to speak any further because we are going to switch a bit. We are all hungry, so 1 hour 15 for lunch. So we invite you for a nice lunch. So we have a lunch break. Then we have Martin Vysoky and we continue with our conference. Thank you very much.